Welcome back to the Cult of Comics podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, and today, of course, we have Josh and Craven. How's it going?
That's exactly what we've
That's not
got
my
here.
name.
No, shh. Josh and Craven, how's it going?
Craven the Hunter?
I think Tyler's having a stroke.
Stronken and Bonkin, Bear to Bear.
Craven, West.
Narm.
If you've never been on the show before, this is a comic book media podcast. It's the only show where you can find 3 dicks for the price of 1. I am Tyler. I am a 30-year-old Pacific Northwesterner. That's Sean Walsh. He is, I guess, Irish, but technically not really because he doesn't even like whiskey. And that's Josh Craven, the only man I've ever known to give his full heart into every single thing he did. And he just ran 2 marathons in order to raise over $1 million for charity. But we don't know what that charity is. I think it was for 3 different reasons, right? To save 1 million children, I think is one of them, right? What was the...
It was to slay 1 million children, actually.
So basically like
came home
Rwanda,
and beat
but
his
for
children
infanticide
afterwards.
instead. What would you call that? Baby Rwanda?
I'm trying to come up with a good word.
I believe in you.
The are toddlering genocide.
I can accept that. I will accept this. Today is Sunday, September 26th, 2021. We're still in the middle of the pandemic, and today is our news episode where we are going to talk about all the things happening in the world of comic books. And right off the bat, we're going to... Not really, no, but right off the bat, we're going to talk about the biggest news, which is that Marvel is both getting sued by creators of the families for the rights of the characters, as well as countersuing for rights to those families of creators. Now, in specific, there's been a couple of different reports. The Hollywood Reporter is citing specifically the family members of Steve Ditko for creations that he has made, although there are other characters that were created specifically, such as characters on the Avengers, such as Iron Man and Doctor Strange, I believe. Doctor Strange is the one in specific that was cited because of Steve Ditko. And the way that this is looking is this is actually looking a lot like what happened with the Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's case in 1947. To an extent. Now, the ways in which they're similar are actually something that we've gone over in copyright law. So regarding the ownership of characters, because of, as you guys know, a lot of how these old contracts worked is it basically was work for hire. So in March 1st, 1938, a contract was signed by Siegel and Shuster in which they sold Superman to Detective Comics back when it was still Detective Comics, not DC. And
Is it not still National Comics at that point?
DC Comics Incorporated.
They all kind of ate each other, didn't they?
Yeah, National Comics
well, in a
became
way they
Detective
did.
Comics, which became DC Comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So basically, Detective Comics was the #1 seller of all time, of course. So that was the big reason why they gained so much money in order to be able to purchase all these other characters. That's why they were able to purchase Blue Beetle, Aquaman, blah, 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 eventually molding everybody in together. Action Comics started to go under in the 1940s, I believe. I can't remember if it was late 1940s.
I don't know the dates.
I think it was late 1940s in specific because I do remember very vividly that there was quite a few issues of Superman punching like Japanese kamikaze fighters on covers and stuff like that. But
Captain America's
just like flying right up next to the plane and just like, boop.
Basically. And I mean, there's also several issues of Detective Comics where Batman is punching Hitler and other Nazis.
Everyone gets their shot at Hitler.
Absolutely. So the essential summary for this is that because of the original contract, these work-for-hire rulings designated that these characters created by these people would be printed under the publishing houses at the time, which officially gave them ownership over these things. Now, there actually is a specific issue, comic book issue that came out this week that reminded me of this, and I think it was intentional, which is the Miracle Molly issue. And it actually touches on how businesses, companies, contracts can designate that any work that is done under the umbrella, whether it's in the building or for the work of a company, is the property of that company, work, or building. And this is no
it's not just
different from
comics.
that.
That's any kind of business. Like if I write code while working for a business, that belongs to the business. If I'm using their hardware, their computers, or doing it on location there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good example of that. This is not an uncommon practice. However, with regards to the ownership of Superman, because Siegel and Schuster had lost the official ownership of these characters, they argued that they still owned the copyright, which is technically true, and is technically true of any artist, photographer, musician, what have you. Just by creating something and putting it out into the world, you technically have the full ownership of that copyright. So unless you have a full declaration saying that you sell the copyright to something in order for a company to fully own the use of it, another really good example of this would be the difference between or the way in which Marvel has been towing the line with Spider-Man. Now, obviously, they still own the copyright for the character, so they can print the comics. They have full ownership of that. They can make TV shows. They can make the toys. But when it comes to Sony, in the original contract in 1998, when Marvel was going bankrupt, it was that they purchased the film ownership rights, as well as a part of the toy sales with it. So this is basically something that is referred to as a lack of mutuality. Basically saying that because of the early nature of these works, they were not considered fully developed. And because of the way that these works have grown over time, it comes into a question of when something becomes so big, how much of that was in the original express intent and purpose of that creation of that character versus how it's used now. I can't really think of any other times that we've seen this outside of this case. I mean, obviously, there's the question of.
Well, I think it's just about any kind of estate, trying to claim back full control or partial control of whatever the property is of
Absolutely.
the original creator.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not the first time that we've seen something like this in comics. I mean, we've seen not that long ago, recent filings between Neil Gaiman and Todd McFarlane, where Gaiman wanted to have ownership and complete copyright over Angela, which he eventually sold to Marvel. And Todd McFarlane actually, ironically, used a lot of the same arguments that he was told when he was told that he could not take Venom with him when he left Marvel. This is unfortunately a long-running kind of circular thing that we've seen in comics when it comes to copyright, and it's obviously the number one reason why a lot of creators typically jump ship from DC or Marvel.
This kind of leads us on to our next point. We can circle back to the Marvel getting sued thing, but the Predator comics being indefinitely delayed now. It was supposed to come in, I believe, June, but that's been delayed because the original screenwriters for the original 1987 movie, is it 87?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, they are claiming that the copyright should be reverted back to them now because enough time's passed that they can appeal it.
So this is actually another interesting argument, because copyright law in America is something that has changed quite a bit over time. Original copyright law designated that within a certain period of time, I think it was around 60 to 70 years, that copyright falls back to the original owner.
Now.
Yes, it has moved up quite
Disney
a bit.
Keeps saying, we need to keep Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is ours. Keep extending the date so we can keep.
If you just keep refiling, you technically can. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate legal loophole which has been abused quite a bit over time, and because people are just not that interested in overseeing a hefty amount of copyright law, it's not something that gets pushed out in the media very often.
I think for Predator, it was. I think what I had read was it was kind of tenuous on whether or not they actually had a claim to it, but Marvel kind of blushed at that and said, "Okay, well, we don't want to test this just yet. Let's get it all figured out."
Going back to the Superman case, It was originally decided in 1948 by a judge that both Superman and Superboy belonged to National Comics publications. And this is following a separate judge who had concluded that Superman was owned by National Comics, but Siegel owned Superboy. However, it was later challenged, and there was a settling out of court. And under the, I actually just found this. Mm-hmm. Under the Copyright Act of 1909, the original copyright lasted 28 years, so it wasn't even that long. It's extended all the way to 90 now. And the renewal does require a put in every 28 years. So, because of this, in 1965, from 1965 to 1974, there were multiple copyright renewal applications and another lawsuit, which is the more famous lawsuit that we know of because of the way that the comic book industry responded to Siegel and Schuster and the overall recognition that they got screwed over with this. Nobody can predict how big something gets. I mean, you sell an idea for anything and it gets blown up to this way. No one can really make those kinds of predictions. You can't predict that Spawn will not be the best-selling comic of all time. You can't predict that Invincible will only run 144 issues. Those kinds of predictions are not things that you can really make. But when it comes to the expanse of how big these things can get, that's something that people have tried to put into consideration when it comes to these copyright claims, laws, actions, and lawsuits. According to a source, a secondary circuit court of appeals had disagreed with the lower court's decision that Superman was a work made for hire. The court below, this is a quote, instead relied upon finding of fact number 22, we're not going to go into which one of that is, in which the state court found that the plaintiffs did revise and expand the Superman material at the request of the defendants, and that this revised material constituted the formula for the ensuing series of strips. So, because of that basic conclusion from the original work for hire, what they had done is they went back to the original creators, moved forward with trying to maintain a stronger sense of employment, and essentially taking their works and moving forward with it. There was an argument that they had full copyright ownership of Superman. Nevertheless, they agreed that Siegel and Schuster had indeed transferred the renewal rights and thus were not entitled to the copyright for Superman, unfortunately. So even though there was a appeal, it still was reverted back to the original decision. A lot of this is because at the time they were very, very, very poor when they had sold the works for this. They were just two dudes who just wanted to make something fun. They didn't realize how big it was going to be. And then in 1992, Schuster died. He transferred his control of his estate to his sister, and they signed an agreement with DC Comics wherein they re-granted DC all of Joe Shuster's rights in exchange for $25,000 annual stipend. And then in 1996, Siegel died. So it's a lot of not unlike what we saw with Bill Finger, for example. Because of this declaration of ownership, it's how much do you want to hold on to the golden goose? You recognize how much money these things are. You recognize how much this has blown up to. But because of what happened with the Bill Finger documentary, apparently from 2000, this actually led to the Bill Finger documentary. 2004 to 2016, Siegel's heirs sued, once again, in the District Court for Central District of California. It looks like before the cases were resolved, Laura Siegel Larson, daughter, took over the cases and became executor to Siegel Estate. And DC Comics argued that a letter from Siegel constituted a binding acceptance of DC's offer for the rights of Superman. So, because of these
an
multiple
agreement
different
from the 90s basically said you don't have standing now because we already had the agreement in the 90s.
Don't get me wrong, they're still going to get credit for all of these things, of course.
Yeah, because one thing I do want to mention is in all Superman and Superboy comics, in the title page, it said Superman with association with the Schuster and Siegel family.
And they do receive a stipend. They do receive some money, but because of the nature of the original agreement, they are not going to give up full ownership of these things. And this is one of those legal things where it's like, obviously you want the people to get their due. You want the people who made these things to get their due, of course. But it's also a question
there's the estates of the people that made these things.
Absolutely. It's sometimes just even getting recognition can be enough, but in this case, this happening with Disney and Marvel is going to push more of a question moving forward with how much are you going to allow a publishing house to claim full ownership of things. And it's probably going to demotivate people from working with original contracts like that in the future with these big two. In the case of Steve Ditko with the creation of Doctor Strange, obviously there was a question not that long ago of Jack Kirby also wanting to lay claim to these things and then the Kirby estate, but because, again, of the nature of things, it all fell back down to these same issues. Now, the Predator one is actually interesting because the argument there is that because the original screenwriters are trying to take ownership of that, it's not unlike the Sony and Marvel thing, where they may have been the original screenwriters for the film, and they do have a legal copyright to that. But when it comes to the distribution of comic books, that's a totally separate thing.
Yeah, you got to look at.
I don't know where that's going to go.
You need to look at what agreements have already been made for those.
Yeah. Now, here's the other fucked up thing about the Disney case, is Disney has chosen to countersue and is suing the estates.
Oh, they've basically sued to prove that they are asking that, do we have the correct copyrights?
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird that you have to sue to ask the question, do we have the right copyrights?
I think that there's a big association with the word sue, as if it's an attack in a lot of ways, but in actuality, it is just a legal term that is typically used to bring two people together to challenge or ask a question about these things. If you are a divorcing couple and you want to sue your former spouse or spouse you're trying to separate from for ownership of something, it's a matter of something that can't be declared in a one-on-one conversation or with a group of people. It has to be handled with the legal court systems, and that way it's seen as something that's justifiable, upheld with a document, and that way there's no ifs, ands, or busts, he said, she said kind of nonsense. This is something that I actually am going to bring up to, my...
Marvel is seeking a declaration that it holds the valid copyrights to the disputed characters.
Mm-hmm.
The company is not pursuing any damages.
Exactly. So it's they're not even seeking money out of that point. They're just seeking a declaration in a document.
We want it to be kind of notarized that we own this shit.
Absolutely.
A few things I do want to mention regarding the royalties they get for their characters they created. I'm trying to think who it was. Len Wein, who created Wolverine, Storm, several X-Men, said despite the success of the X-Men movies, he got paid more for Ra's al Ghul's appearance in Batman Begins than he did for all of the X-Men, all the Wolverine movies, despite creating the characters.
I'm not surprised by that.
And Jim Starlin got nothing for Thanos. He didn't even know Thanos was appearing in the first Avengers movie until he watched the first Avengers movie and saw him.
Comically funny how dicked over these guys get. These guys, Ed Brubaker, all of them.
Well, at least with Ed Brubaker, with the plot line for Winter Soldier, I mean...
He didn't create a character, though. I understand his point is they took his story and adapted it into a movie, but he didn't create he created the moniker of Winter Soldier, but he didn't create the character of Bucky Barnes.
And the original... Yeah, and the original plot of that storyline also involved the Red Skull, Russia. There was Skull and Crossbones, whatever his name was.
I've never read Ed Brubaker's Captain America stuff. Is he basically the Marvel Red Hood?
Um,
Dead character comes back to life,
yes.
starts as a bad guy, becomes an anti-hero.
Well,
Yes
nobody
and
voted
no.
to kill off Bucky Barnes.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I would also say that the difference being that Bucky in the original comics also very willingly like killed Nazis as well, and that was something that obviously Batman and the Bat family didn't want. Also, the Winter Soldier program in specific was highlighted because they froze him, uh, brainwashed him, brought him back out. I mean, what they did in the movies was a very good adaptation from that. Obviously, they didn't include the elements of the Russia conspiracy and the Red Skull conspiracy and all of that. But I mean, for as far as an adaptation goes, they did a damn good job. Um,
Another
it,
thing I want. Sorry, have you got more about that point?
no, not really. Go ahead.
Okay, just regarding original characters that are created for these companies. Before the episode, Josh asked me if I'd learned anything in any of the newsletters I've been reading on Substack lately. And I think I've mentioned this in a previous episode, maybe, but James Tynan, when he was writing his Batman run, the reason he's got so many new original characters throughout it,
Oh yeah, you mentioned
such
this.
as Punchline,
Ghostmaker,
Hunter, Ghostmaker, The
Miracle
Gardener,
Molly.
Miracle Molly, all these, he said that when he was writing his scripts, when 5G was still on the table and they didn't really know what was happening at DC and everything was in a state of flux, he would put in his pitch for a story, get the approval for the characters he wants to use. He'd go write the story, write the script, pass it on to the artist. The artist would be into drawing it, and then he'd get a memo saying, "Oh, this character is no longer available because plans have changed for them." Then he'd have to go back, rewrite the script, pass on. The artist would have to redraw the issue, and there was a lot of shifting. Everything was in a state of flux, so he was constantly having to rewrite scripts he'd already written, change
Sure.
plans, all this. So he decided to just basically create his own original characters that DC couldn't really stop him using
Mm-hmm.
because, yeah.
And this isn't even the
Hmm.
first time that we've seen something like that. I mean, how many creators have tried to use ABC characters and then get stopped by editorial?
Yeah. So that's the reason why Tynan's had so many original characters in his run, which I feel has been a complaint from some people. Some people have been saying, oh, it's good that he's bringing something new to the world. But some people have been saying it's kind of weird he's bringing these characters in when there's already people he could use.
Sure. Um, this is, I think, a point where I actually want to bring up a legal term called fair use when it comes to copyright in America and when it comes to American companies. So let's say that you're making a documentary or you're filming something for the news, right? And in the backdrop, there's a McDonald's archway sign. What happens with that?
So, in this thing that you're making, you're going to try and make a profit off of it.
Of the film, let's say that you do, absolutely. But in the backdrop, unintentionally, you have the McDonald's archway sign, or someone, there's an advertisement for a burger from Mickey D's.
Mm-hmm. So, Mickey D's can lay claim to part or all of your product.
This is an interesting argument that has been done before. So this is where the term fair use comes into play, and the reason I bring it up is because it actually applies to characters, creations that are so widespread that it is almost impossible to get away from them in the world, in the real
Mm-hmm.
world, that is. So I use Mickey D's because in one case they tried to sue for copyright use off of profit with them in the backdrop of a film, movie, TV show, whatever it was, and the courts decided that because it was simply in the background, it wasn't the highlight of the storyline, it was kind of accidental, it wasn't intentional, and they can prove all of that, that fair use happens. Now, with the logos of Batman, Superman, all of these characters that are so incredibly famous at this point, that same argument has been done multiple times over as well. And it's actually the same reason why you can see some comic books, some books in general, films, whatever, highlight these sorts of things. There are exceptions, obviously, because in movies such as like Iron Giant, for example, they actually do use real comic books, like actual DC comic books in that film. and they highlight not only the word Superman, but the emblem, the logo, a picture of him, and a comic book. And while they don't go into very explicit amounts of detail, the reason why they were able to do so is because it was under the Warner Brothers logo. And they were able to just go, oh, well, we have the copyright to that. That's completely fine. But in other cases, if there's a scene where someone does something that's even resembling the Christopher Reeve, pulling of the shirt open to reveal the logo, sometimes they can sue for that just based on the movements themselves, but fair use comes into play. Some of these characters are so huge and so well renowned in the world that you can't get around it. And realistically, that's the other part of this argument that I think that people are not really talking about, is because these characters have become so huge and so recognized in the world that the creators do deserve some form of copyright ownership and claim over it in the end. Now, in some arguments, they're going to go to, well, we've given recognition for the original creators. Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger has been the new resolve for that as of the Bill Finger documentary from Hulu.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actual compensation, there's been, majority of the time, courts going to agree with the original contracts. And unfortunately, that's what happens with contract work, is you're going to get screwed in the end if you don't read the fine print. Even if you don't think of yourself as someone who's making something that's absolutely enormous right now. In the NFT world, that's something people are talking about right now. With non-fungible tokens in the creation of art, the copyright is yours just by creating it. Same thing with taking a photo, whatever. But when you sell the actual copyright for it, that's it. That's done. You can't make any more profit off of that. That was a one-time deal. You make the profit off of the selling of that copyright. So when it comes to contract work like this, there's really nothing that's going to compensate or save these creators from this work, because of the nature of business in America. And in a lot of ways, whether we can agree that it's predatory or not, it is the nature of this market in this industry.
Yeah. Well, you keep saying creators, but it is the estates that represent the creators that have, they're no longer here. It's
yes, but because
the
of
children,
the
grandchildren of those folks. I find it a bit harder to support them, but I also I don't want to support, the big mega corporations. They don't need more money.
No, they
only
don't.
They only stand to lose a bit of profit in the US. They have all of the rights to outside of the US. They're only standing in these suits to lose anything profit-wise in the US.
And this is the reason why Image Comics was formed, is because when you make that creation, that's yours. That's the full ownership. That's the work that you get is just.
You just mentioning Image is something I want to bring up. I learned this week that Skybound Entertainment retains the rights to your comics you publish through them.
Oh, okay. Is that? Oh, I thought it was the other way around, where if you're writing for Skybound, you retain your rights. So it's.
No, that's the same with
Skybound owns all the rights to Birthright, Radiant Black, all that stuff,
or at least a percentage of the rights. I'm not sure how.
Yeah, come on, Kirkman.
Yeah, no. It has to. The way that they have advertised it in specific has to be that because of how Image Comics has agreed to make their works in the first place. While there may be a publishing house that is a subsidiary through the actual publishings of Image Comics themselves, the profits that they are going to retain from the sales and distributions is more that it's going to be strongly associated with those things, but the creators still get full copyright ownership of those creations.
Skybound pays the writer and artist paid rate, but they retain rights to the work.
That goes against what they've been advertising themselves as, though.
But it's not all of Image, it's just Skybound and Kirkman.
Then why would his entire thing is making a big fuss about how his time working at Marvel was a horrible place to work at. It was a terrible place.
I'm sure it's better, he doesn't abuse rights, but he does at least own a partial right in all of the creations through Skybound.
Again, that's just weird, because I feel like I've heard nonstop about how Image has claimed that the creators get full ownership of those things, of their creations. That's weird.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's something to look into later. I guess we can move on to the next thing, unless you guys have something else to say.
Just one more thing that.
Yeah, please.
The lawyer representing the Ditko estate, and I'm not sure if the Larry Lieber estate is separate from this. I think it's a different suit.
Mm-hmm.
But for the Ditko estate, they are being represented by the same lawyer that represented the folks for the Siegel and Schuster lawsuit.
You know what? That is something I forgot to bring up. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
Marvel is starting to frame this as kind of like, this lawyer is just trying to shake us down to see if they can make any money off of this. Because I believe, well, they didn't win with DC. I think there was still like an out of court settlement just to make this go away.
Probably. Now, I know that there's going to be people who are going to say, well, okay, I don't know how this is really going to affect me. But realistically, whenever anything like this comes into play and something like this comes into the foray, especially something this big, it really does set a precedent for a legal precedent for copyright ownership moving forward. And this is something that you're going to see in music. I mean, we've already seen some artists really try to fight to have more ownership of their music from either companies or, I think it was the guy from Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan, thank you, who tried to say that whenever his music gets played on the radio that he should be receiving some sort of a profit from that because of the advertising and everything. It's again that question of like, how do you get that workaround for?
We've also seen, to go on a bigger scale, Taylor Swift's been re-recording all of her own songs to own the rights to them.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Sorry, I wanted to kind of put in there. You remember, I think it was about a year ago, where Sony and Disney were basically fighting over rights to Spider-Man, and there was the whole like, oh, Spider-Man might not be in the MCU anymore. And seeing how fans responded to that, either telling Sony to knock that off or telling either one to play fair. So it's been interesting to see where people come down on the estates suing Marvel.
Well, I mean, that's the one that's bigger, but I think the one that's slightly more interesting as far as a workaround is with what's happened with Hulk, because Universal only just recently released the rights back to Marvel and Disney, and that's the number one reason why there hasn't been a new Hulk film since the Edward Norton one back in like 2008, I think.
It was 2008. Yep. Right. And at like same exact time that Iron Man came out. They both came out together.
Yeah,
remember, because the ending.
Incredible Hulk was,
and they really did like want to tie everything together, but again, it's that question of who's got the ownership for those film rights, and it's also the same reason why we haven't seen a new Green Goblin in any of the Sony films so far, at least. It's the same reason why we haven't seen some of the more popular Spider-Man characters. Because when you're purchasing the copyright or the rights to at least publish or create some things, in this case films, for these characters, you're also taking the villains, Mary Jane Watson, Aunt May with them.
Yeah, you need the villain persona, you need the villains like, actual alias. They're real, like you need Peter Parker and you need Spider-Man to do the whole thing.
And
you need Eddie Brock and you need Venom.
Yes, and that's a very interesting point to be made, because there has been some workarounds of, well, what qualifies, and this is a legal argument here, what qualifies as Spider-Man? Is it the costume? Is it Peter Parker? In this case, they're saying it's Peter Parker and the Spider-Man costume, the red, blue, etc. But that might also include the Clone Saga, so it could be Ben Reilly. Now, the other question is Miles Morales. So obviously Sony made the Into the Spider-Verse franchise, so they have the rights to all of that universe and everything now. But it could be a question of, if they surrender the rights to one portion of this universe, of this Rogues Gallery, that could mean that Marvel could go off on their own with a new series of Miles Morales films, Spider-Gwen, what have you. But it's that legal workaround of what do you define when you look at these collections of words, and if Spider-Man's not in New York, is it a Spider-Man movie? Is it still Spider-Man if he is not a thin, white, coded Jewish Queens kid who's really intelligent? It's these little changes that you can argue as a part of the adaptation process. But ultimately, if it comes down to this, finite list of characteristics in that world, that's what lays claim to the rights. And that's the same reason why we haven't seen very many other Hulk villains outside of the Abomination in the Marvel Universe right now. And we're going to be seeing the Abomination come back in She-Hulk. She-Hulk is going to be...
He already appeared in Shang-Chi.
Exactly.
Did you not see it yet, Tyler?
No, I actually wanted to go see it with my friend, but he wasn't interested in going to see it with me. So no, you're fine. You already told me.
We thought you had seen it already.
Yeah, it's in the trailer. It's not even a big deal. Yeah.
Oh, right, because I didn't watch too many of the trailers. I try and avoid as much as I can.
I totally understand.
His role in the trailer was exactly the amount of screen time he got in the movie.
Yeah.
That was his scene.
Okay.
It might have been an extra 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah.
All right.
But not that big of a deal.
I think we've waxed poetic on this enough.
Yeah, we can. And we can actually move on to the next bit. DC has announced that the reason for the multiple delays for the upcoming comics has been because of the pandemic. The issues in specific that they're saying are issues such as Batman, Catwoman. I believe they said Justice League as well.
Yeah, so
I think Batman, Catwoman is a bit different because...
Yeah, but they're still saying that it's a supply issues as well.
But
supply of warm bodies to draw the pictures.
I guess.
But it's just strange the ones that are being delayed because it's not sort of an entire week stuff. We've got 4 issues of Static Shock delayed, 4 issues of Wonder Girl, several different Batman books.
Mm-hmm. Superman books too. Feels like we were
like
supposed to get
here and there.
Son of Kal-El was supposed to come out this past week and it got delayed 1 week. But I feel like maybe some of the other Superman books too have been.
It's just strange
delayed.
that it's not all across the board. It's just like Wonder Girl's been like releasing every 6 or 7 weeks anyway, and now they're like, 4 issues delayed because of COVID. It feels like they're just using it to justify their delays.
Yeah, Wonder Girl keeps getting delayed.
Like, how were 4 issues of Static delayed, but only 1 other issue from the Milestone stuff with Hardware?
Well, according to the Games Radar article, they're suggesting that the delays are a combination of issues with supplies, where they've been prioritizing paper supplies and workforce shortages to be focused on the big hitters, the ones that they know are going to sell. So obviously Batman, etc. But they've been trying to keep the delays and shortages to a minimum at this point. But because of the port closures with the pandemic, they are having to find ways to work around it. And the reason for the digital release delays is because they want them to remain day and date with the print editions. And I mean, it's probably a combination of the fact that there is these freight delays, workforce shortages, paper supply issues, as well as the creator issue concerns that they're having right now. Now, in the case of Batman, Catwoman, at least, we know that that's an art delay as well. But that's all we really know.
But isn't issue 8 another one of the Liam Sharp issues? He was doing a 2-parter.
Maybe, but I'll tell you this right now. If he does fill in work for the rest of that friggin' book, I'll buy him, man. It's great.
He's only doing 2 issues, I think, and then it's back to Clayman.
I don't know if it's just that it's Liam Sharp or if it's the inker or the colorist, but man, it's so good. It just looks fantastic. Yeah. So there you go. That's the reason for the delays going on right now. And it's interesting to see that there's still all these issues. It's almost like we're still in the middle of the pandemic, and it's still something that we're actually all dealing with and not something that's just going away magically.
Yeah.
Fucking ridiculous. There's also been an announcement from Jeff Lemire on his social media page that Black Hammer is going to be coming to a close. The announcement came in the form of a picture released on his social media. I believe it was on Twitter. of a script that he was finishing up, which read in the title Black Hammer: The End, the Bible of Black Hammer. And could this mean that this is him finalizing his work on Black Hammer entirely, possibly letting other creators hop on it, especially with what's been going on with Black Hammer Visions?
Well, he's already announced that he's going to have more. He's going to have a load of Substack issues coming out for it.
Yeah, he's so busy.
Yeah, so whether it's just the end of the main series, which had like Black Hammer, Age of Doom, whatever the third one was,
Reborn,
whether it's just at the end of
whatever it was.
Whether it's just the end of this main series, and then he's still going to have all the little spin-offs and weird stuff going on elsewhere. Because he's been publishing a lot of Black Hammer stuff.
Yeah, that remains to be seen.
A lot of stuff. And, I mean, we just had an issue from Scott Snyder with Dave Rubin on Black Hammer Visions. So it's not like these comics are stale and, out of date or anything. So it's very much a decision to probably just put a final nail in the coffin for how things are going to be moving forward, at least for how we know it now.
What if they just have like the entire cast of Doom Patrol just pivot to be Black Hammer? Just like, we're going to take all of this production right here, and we're going to take all these people, and then we're just going to make Black Hammer.
That would be interesting. I really do want you guys to check out Black Hammer. I think that you guys would really like it.
Yeah.
After the last couple of weeks of the Lemire stuff, I'm really interested in checking this out now.
I mean, he's been a fantastic writer.
I'm eyeing up issue 1 on eBay at the minute and contemplating
if I'm
buying it.
Let me look up real quick.
It'll be a good investment. I mean, they're already going to make it into a show.
Yeah, I can get issues 1 to 4 for like $40.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. I see Black Hammer, and I think like Jeff Lemire is trying to do like his own like Mike Mignola style. Like, it kind of looks like Hellboy, or it kind of looks like Umbrella Academy, which was like its own version of Doom Patrol.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think Gerard Way even said that was the reason why
he said he always wanted to write Doom Patrol, but didn't think he'd ever get the chance. So he created Umbrella Academy, and then he went on to write Doom Patrol. Yeah, which ended up being heavily delayed because of Nick Darrington's slow art.
Which I thought was weird, because I thought that he was really fast as an artist. Because Batman Universe seemed to just go.
But that was like, that came out over like a long period of like.
Maybe they had a nice runway for him to have all the art done ahead of time before they started releasing.
Yeah, because it was like 5 pages coming out monthly in that Walmart special. And it was only later on it got collected. So
Walmart special?
Yeah, I remember when DC was doing the Walmart specials?
Whatever.
It was like 2 or 3 years ago. They were apparently really hard to find and didn't really sell great because they were too hard to find.
They were, but they did reprint a lot of those issues to be sold in comic book stores. It was a contract they were doing. I think this was back when Ditko was still in.
To work your whole life to have your art become a Walmart exclusive.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, we've seen stuff come out like Target exclusives before too. Remember when Prince came out with the Target exclusive album?
Yeah.
Weird stuff.
But he's got such a catalog, he can just say, just go through this. You guys can have that.
I mean, I guess, but I mean, it was new work that he had made. He made it specifically to be released to them, I think. Yeah.
He's got such a large, like, he's got like, a whole vault of things that he, never released. And
does he really?
Like, his estate will just go through and like, now that, since he passed however many years, a few years ago.
Sorry?
Prince. But he's got so much like recorded music that's never been released that they're just like going through the library and like, okay, we can put all this stuff together.
Sure, yeah. That's fair. Okay. There's been an announcement.
Do you want to know just like a weird fact? Let me just find it.
About Prince the musician or the Prince?
Yes. Not the one you killed, the musician. You know the episode of Simpsons that had Michael Jackson in it that was actually voiced by Michael Jackson?
Okay.
Do you remember that episode?
Yeah.
Vaguely.
There was going to be a sequel with Prince in it. where the same guy came back, but like the same like random guy, but he was voiced by Prince this time instead of Michael Jackson.
Interesting.
Prince agreed, like they sent Prince the script and he agreed to it, and then found out that he read the wrong script and he read like a fan script written by his chauffeur who read the original before it got delivered to him. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was Matt Groening and the Simpsons guys sent Prince a script, but like the chauffeur read it and rewrote his own script and gave that one to Prince. And Prince said he disliked the Simpsons one and wanted his chauffeur ones to be used instead. Yeah. It was very strange. And
he was a weird dude.
Yeah.
He was a weird dude. Anybody who's seen Purple Rain knows that. All right. Random factoids, and usually I'm the one who's got some random facts.
All right.
Ram V has announced that he will be leaving Catwoman and Justice League Dark, and that Swamp Thing is going to be getting a second series. Swamp Thing is currently an 8 or 10 issue run.
It's a 10 issue run, and I think it's about, 7 issues in?
I believe so.
And Justice League Dark is in the back of Justice League?
Yes. It's a backup story at the minute, unfortunately.
Like the regular Justice League, not Last Ride or anything like that.
Nope. The regular Justice League, it's in the back of it, yeah.
He's been doing that for quite a while. Maybe they had that done for a while as well, because it's not even 10 pages usually, maybe 7 or 8.
Well, I think that this is this is one of those things that Sean and I have had a disagreement on. Is I think that the reason why it's been put in the backup is because Bendis wanted Ram V to be able to finalize his story, and that they were going to cancel Justice League Dark. But I think that he thinks the opposite. That
Bendis has said he wants a crossover, and that's why he put it in the main book.
Sure, but I mean, I really feel like he was trying to preserve Justice League Dark. It's not the first time Bendis has stepped in and been like, no, please don't cancel that. And people actually listen to him because he's Bendis, you know?
Yeah. Dickhead.
Has he announced when he's leaving Catwoman?
He has not.
Okay. It's probably going to happen after Fear State at this point.
Probably, get that out of the way, then leave so the next like sort of slate of creators can come on board.
Yeah. I wonder if he's going to be doing anything for Substack since he's been working with Tynion.
Well, he's on the Jonathan Hickman book, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah.
Ram V?
It's co-written by Ram V, Al Ewing, and Teenie Howard.
Which comic?
3 Worlds, 3 Moons.
It is?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's news to me.
You guys are streets behind.
Yeah.
I guess. I'm surprised. All right. Speaking of Ram V, there's been an announcement on Twitter by Al Ewing, or was it by Ram V?
I believe it was by Ram V.
Okay.
In
response to a question. Yeah. In response to a question about the upcoming Venom series, which will be coming out in October, it is clarified that both Al Ewing and Ram V will be co-writing this, but it's going to be dual-focused. Issue 1 will feature both Eddie's story written by Al Ewing, and Dylan's story will be written by Ram V, with subsequent issues we'll be focusing on one or the other.
Yes.
So some issues will have one, some issues will have the other. And I think he said some issues will eventually be interlaced or have.
Sure.
Yeah, it won't just be alternating back and forth. Some might have, 2 issues for one and then 2 issues for another.
This is basically what's happening.
The trades will collect bits and pieces and sort of merge them together in order.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. This is basically what's been going on with Sea of Stars with Jason Aaron and what's his name? Dennis Hallam.
What is Sea of Stars?
Sea of Stars is an Image comic that is a sci-fi story about a space trucker and his son. They get a run-in with a space whale shark, basically, that tears apart their ship, and they get separated. The son gets introduced to a power source that allows him to breathe in space and communicate with extraterrestrial life, including a space monkey and a space fish. I can't remember what it was.
Sounds like the craziest trip.
It really is. Meanwhile, the father's trying to get to his son, and he's basically pulling a Rick Remender in Black Science and just like, I gotta get my family, and just
Oh, I was
plowing
thinking
through
more
shit.
like Mel Gibson. Give me back my son.
That too, yeah. Give me back my family. Every single fucking film. Um, it's not a bad comic at all. It's just it's something I think if you're not accustomed to just being able to pace yourself with it, it can be somewhat jarring. But it definitely is something that is pretty captivating, and the art's really beautiful. Um, they went on a hiatus for about 2 months, I believe, and they just came back.
Okay. Oh, I think I have seen this.
Huh?
Yeah, I had no idea.
It's a charming little book.
Yeah.
I know that we mentioned Red Hood earlier. This is a new announcement from HBO Max. Apparently, they are reportedly working on a Red Hood movie, which will be tying into the Nightwing movie, which is also going to be released through HBO Max.
Add it to the pile.
Still the? It's not Chris McKenna, is it? Who's doing the Nightwing movie?
I don't even know.
I know someone was doing.
Hard to keep track.
I know someone was doing the Nightwing movie, and then I think they might have dropped out of it.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's not something that I've heard anything about.
Yeah, no, this was back around the BVS release where they announced a load of shit that ended up not happening.
Yeah, literally like a ton of fucking films that are just never going to get made at this point.
But honestly, if you want to give me more HBO stuff, just building a Bat universe. But we've got a Batgirl series coming, a Batgirl movie coming, a Red Hood movie, Nightwing movie, Batman with Pattinson. Give me a big Batman world. Give me the Bat fam.
Mm-hmm. So if Nightwing doesn't happen, the Red Hood doesn't happen.
Sorry?
If Nightwing doesn't happen, then probably the Red Hood doesn't happen.
Oh, well, none of it's going to happen.
Probably.
They've announced
there's one thing I know about DC is their projects don't happen.
Place your bets.
Yeah.
I will bet 46 cents that it doesn't happen.
I will raise you $1.
That's too rich for my blood.
I will bet you 46 squids.
So this is the same.
They're valuable.
Yeah.
This is my same complaint that I've had before.
46 cents and 2 buttons that came off a jacket.
I will raise you a sticker I found on the sidewalk and the biggest hug.
I've also got some toenail clippings. Not mine.
Why do you collect that? What's wrong with you?
I think we're getting a little weird now.
Listen, we all got a little weird. Listen. We were talking about how you waffle stomp your poop in the shower. I think we're fine.
No, we weren't. You were.
Listen, don't judge me.
We ignored you while you did that, but...
Look,
yeah,
we
I
all
looked
poop
at the
in the
messages and
shower.
I was like, yeah, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
We all poop in the shower. It's fine. Sometimes you just gotta let it happen.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't.
You know,
that's one thing I'm going to try to avoid. You know,
until I'm maybe.
It might happen when I'm like
80s.
80 or 90, and it just kind of falls out. But
well, I mean, you're not that far off from that now, right? I mean, you got like only a couple of years left
until you just start losing down control of your colon.
Counting down the days of colon.
Counting down the days so I can get away with all sorts of stuff. He's old. Just let him do it.
It's fine. He's fine. He's gonna die.
It's not worth the effort to tell him to stop.
Anyway,
I just want to ask.
Well,
I just want to say this really quick. This is the same complaint that I've had before when it comes to the DC announcements. It doesn't make sense to make a Red Hood movie when you haven't even established him as a Robin and developing him in the Batman movies or universe. So why even jump the gun on it?
It's just understood. Like
Tyler, they don't give a fuck.
For Spider-Man, for the latest Spider-Man, you didn't have to see Uncle Ben die to know that Uncle Ben had died.
Yeah, but the reason why they did that is because
we've seen
so many people
like 19 times.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we know the origin story, and if you don't know the origin story, like, you just live under a rock.
But anybody that's actually going to watch the Red Hood movie will already know. I think the Red Hood movie is going to be real niche.
Yeah, even I'm not going to watch it. It's that niche.
Fair enough. Fun a bit of news. Go for it.
The Sandman trailer has been released.
A teaser.
It gave me enough.
It was enough. I mean, it very much... I'll be honest with you. I guess I didn't really go into this expecting it to be
good.
No, I didn't expect it to be that faithful of an adaptation, but so far this looks like a very faithful adaptation.
They're definitely going to have to change some stuff early on with because it ties into Justice League in the first few issues.
Sure. It also ties into, I think Swamp Thing at one point is mentioned. I can't remember when though. I mean, obviously you've got Etrigan, you've got Constantine, you've got other characters that are
changed the Constantine stuff. It's now Joanna Constantine, who is a relative of John Constantine.
Oh right. Yeah.
Yeah, because HBO Max has laid their claim to Constantine.
Yeah, you can go watch it. Like every couple of months, it's on HBO Max. The Keanu Reeves Constantine.
Yeah.
That's getting a sequel, isn't it?
Yeah, they're still working on that.
Yeah.
Well, they announced it, but
it wasn't an accurate
Keanu
movie,
Reeves
but it's still a good movie.
Keanu Reeves is on
really.
the warpath to get all of his previous films another installment.
Peter Stormare was great in that movie.
He's great in all sorts of things. Most things.
I think the part of the film that I really enjoyed was Tilda Swinton, mostly.
She was there were a lot of good stuff in the movie, but it wasn't a Constantine movie. As a sheer Keanu Reeves fighting demons, it was enjoyable.
Who could forget Shia LaBeouf?
I know, right? So here's the thing: even if you're just looking at it as just a film by itself and not as a Constantine film, it is still just a mediocre demon film,
Yeah, but I feel like there's still some watchability in it. It's an enjoyable movie. In the same way Fast and Furious is an enjoyable movie, where you're not going into it watching it thinking, this can win awards, but you're like, this is kind of a fun watch.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that there are times where I will watch a film because I know it's going to be so bad I can make fun of it and have a laugh, like The Room, and I would put Constantine with Keanu Reeves and Fast and the Furious on that same bar.
I know that bad.
You shut your mouth.
No, it's just that bad. It's a terrible film.
Comparing The Room to Fast and Furious, they're not the best movies, but they are watchable, mindless entertainment.
So is a car crash, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's quality entertainment.
Like, you don't come out of The Room feeling inspired to do anything. You come out of Fast and Furious. Yeah, you come out of Fast and Furious movie. It's like, I want to drive fast.
Yeah,
I want to race my cars and steal things and whatever. I don't know about Constantine. If I come out of the movie like, I want to go kill some demons.
I want to go quit smoking. I want to go talk to the devil.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the trailer. It does look very faithful.
It looks like it has high production quality.
Yeah, it does.
The casting's good. He looks like Dream. Whether he acts like Dream remains to be seen.
Yeah. Stop rhyming.
He's got the mask.
He definitely has the mask and the ruby. And the pouch.
Yeah, which I don't remember what was in there, but I remember the ruby because what was his name? Dr. Destiny, Dr. Death, something.
Let me think here for a second. So the pouch was the issue where he actually met up with Constantine, and it was for Constantine's ex-girlfriend who was an addict, and she was addicted to
it was his
sleep.
sand, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's his pouch of sand.
Yeah. And it started affecting the rest of the world, and then they walked into the house, and all that crazy stuff happens.
I need to read Sandman. I read the first half. I need to finish it.
It's really good. I didn't go into it thinking that it was going to be a serial, here's a one issue for everything that was going on kind of thing, which I'm actually looking forward to for the show. Here's my question now.
What was the name of the guy who got the ruby?
Oh, wasn't that Dr. Fate? No, not Fate. I'm sorry.
Destiny, something like that.
Destiny. I think it was Destiny.
Jack Ruby.
I hate you.
Dr. Destiny.
Here's my question.
That issue 6 is such fucking good horror. Whether in the diner.
Here's my question. Since Lucifer has gone to Netflix now, do we think that we're going to see Lucifer in the Sandman production?
It's already done.
It's played by Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones, Brienne of Tarth.
Oh, yeah, they already announced that at casting. My bad. Yeah. You're completely right. Okay.
She could do a good job. I'd rather David Bowie. But
yeah, but we'll make do.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just bring back Tilda Swinton.
She was
have her play all the roles. I know. Have her play all the roles.
All right. Is there anything else you guys want to throw in here before we wrap up?
No.
Cool. All right. That's been our news episode for the Occult to Comics podcast. I'm your host, Tyler. This has been our weekly news roundup where we talk about the things going on in the world of comic books. I'm Tyler. That's Sean. That's Josh. You can't find us on anywhere on social media, except you can find me on TikTok, where I occasionally make videos about comic books and things of that sort. You can go onto YouTube to subscribe to our video channel. You can check out our distributions for the podcast on any of the podcast locations. You can go to anchor.fm/cultocomics to check us out and check out our RSS feed, make your monthly contributions, or you can also go onto patreon.com/cultocomics. Those monthly contributions will give you a reward of the biggest hug, a picture of my feet that I've drawn myself, as well as access to our Discord channel where we would love to have you on for conversations.
And I've still got these toenail clippings I need to get rid of.
You disgust me.
Pass.
Thank you for checking us out.
I need to get
Thank you
rid
for
of them
supporting
before
us.
police find them.
Hit that like button, hit that share, hit that subscribe, and most importantly, give us that dollar, because the dollar makes us holler. And thank you for checking us out. Have an awesome rest of your day. Stay safe out there. Get vaccinated. Wear your mask. All hail and have an awesome rest of your night.